That intro literally took me less than 10 minutes to make. 10 minutes till I was thinking, given that this is a live stream and given that I made an intro last time and given it takes so long for people to kind of log on and stuff, I thought if I start talking, people are going to end up coming halfway through and they're going to be like, yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. So I don't think that was that bad, to be honest with you. Feel free to comment. Oh, we've got our first one. Great intro. Yeah, it wasn't that great, to be honest with you. It's pretty crap. Every intro in this season, I'm going to try and make an intro for every video in this series. It's going to be crap. But luckily, I got a drag and droppy thing. So I just drag videos and put a load of crap in to do with it. And it kind of makes itself. And then I upload it. Don't bother looking at it. Don't bother looking at the music they attach to it. Just go with the preset. It kind of works out something like that. So, not a book review series where I talk about books, but do not actually review them. Instead, I talk a little bit about what I've got from them. Now, today I want to focus on mythology books. Now, I've got this set of 2 mythology books. It's by Thames and Hudson, which is a nice little publisher, and they do a whole series of these on mythology. Now, I've read the Egyptian one. I haven't really read the Norse one. They do lots of different ones. But what I did want to talk about today is mythology books in general, from a magical practitioner's or witch's perspective. Because I'm seeing a lot of the same sort of uses for mythology-based books. Now, a lot of magical practitioners tend to get quite interested in mythology, gods, goddesses, cultures, all of those sorts of things. And I think the way they use books like this, you can kind of think, I know where you're going wrong. So what a lot of people think is that if I get a book on mythology, maybe I will learn a little bit about, I don't know, past lives, or I'm drawn to a certain thing. Maybe I'm drawn to Egyptology, or maybe I'm drawn to this word they use, Celtic, which if you're a Celt, you probably would never have heard that word. I'm pretty sure you wouldn't. But, you know, things like that, they're drawn to something. So they buy a book on it and they have a little look through the book and they think, I'm drawn to this. I've read the book. I think I know a little bit about the culture. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make some sweeping assumptions about this entire culture, and then I'm going to cobble together a magical practice out of that. Now, most of the time, from what I personally see, they don't cobble together a magical practice or system themselves. What they do is, after reading the mythology book, after meeting other people that are interested in that kind of thing, there are various people that start up these recreationalist types of magical practices and systems and stuff like that. You get a lot of that nowadays with the whole Norse thing. And one thing that you need to be very, very, very clear, or something that I need to make very, very clear, if you want to explore, whether it's Egyptian magic, whether it's all these cultural magical practices and, you know, civilizations of the past, if you really want to explore them, you will not do that in the 21st century. If you really want to practice what they practiced, go back and live a life where you're actually born into that culture. Now, I'm not talking in any way, shape or form about cultural misappropriation and saying, well, you know, you're not of this blood, therefore you're not allowed to do this practice, which I'm seeing some of that in the whole Norse thing, in certain modern groups and things like that. Well, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying... Basically, what I'm saying is that all of the recreationalist stuff is absolute crap. All recreationalist magical practices are absolute crap and in no way, shape or form really realistically resemble the originals. Okay. Does that mean that there's, you know, this whole recreationalist thing should be abandoned? Well, I mean, the LARPers like to do it. They like to kind of dress up and pretend to be Vikings and Romans and stuff. But it depends what you're getting out of it. If you're wanting to get magical practice out of it, what you need to do is you need to be thinking from a 21st century, because we're in the 21st century now, 21st century perspective. And what is in the 21st century? Well, for a start, most of us, even the plebs in the Western world, are quite educated. We're able to explore like we've never really explored before. We're able to read, we've got the internet, we can literally save up some money, hop on a plane and go and explore various different places, okay? So this is very much an age of tying things together with regards to magical practice. So if you are trying to create a magical practice, a magical system or something like that, what you really should do is you should think about books like this and cultures of the past as inspiration. Now, reading through is one of the reasons why I actually like these books, is because they're quite small. Now, I've got bigger books like this mythology book. And in the big books, it's got quite large pictures and stuff like that inside. Now, those ones aren't too bad because they're artist renderings. But when it comes to stuff like that, big pictures, a lot of people within magical practices, they really like big pictures because they can really open them up, absorb themselves into the culture, I suppose. They give off a certain buzz, a lot of these pictures, particularly if they're photographs and things like that exploded. I used to do, I don't really do it anymore, but I'd like to go and do it more. I used to do a lot of rock climbing, potholing, things like that, abseiling, you know, extreme sportsy type things. And for me, when I pick up a book, God, like this, yeah, and it's got a massive blown up image that I'm not really fucking expecting to see. It's like leaning over in the pothole that you're about to climb in and your friend pushing you and then grabbing you. It's like being sucked in. It's almost like man overboard, getting pulled in. What I quite like about these little books is they're, gaping holes. They're gaping holes, but they're more like plug holes. I don't feel the danger of falling in. Now, that's just a psychic perspective of things that you retain, you get. Now, flipping through these books, most of what I get is inspiration for projects. In no way, shape or form do I really go and look for information, because I don't find, from a magical practitioner's perspective, I'm ever going to find any decent information in a book of mythology. Books of mythology are academics, and I'll actually quote one of the academics. Today, Egyptologists are faced with scattered and fragmentary references to Egypt's myths, assembled from the content of lots of different sources, basically. So it is pulling together a load of stuff, because archaeology and that is not a strict firm science. It's pulling together a load of stuff and then making a kind of educated guess about what the fuck these people believed, what they did, all of that sort of thing. And those guesses vary very widely. So if you're wanting to cobble together practices, you need a huge amount of inspiration. People go through two different ways to do that. They'll either go to the perspective of they'll use their own creativity to fill in the gaps, or what they'll try to do is they'll try to experiment. Now, you need to ask yourself why, with recreation in this magical practice, why are they actually doing that? Now, there's a very flawed reason that a lot of people take, and that is the ancients knew so much more than we did. All of the information and secrets and mysteries of the world have been lost, and if I go and study this, I may find the secrets that have been long since lost. That's a flawed approach. If you take that approach, and that's the reason why you're going into recreationist forms of magical practice, I can tell you, you're heading in the wrong direction. You think you've looked up at the sky and you're following the northern star. Actually, you're following another star, and the brighter star is over there, but you never looked in that direction. You're following some random fucking star. Doesn't make a lot of sense, but I think some people will have got that. So with regards to this, flicking through, if you're wanting to pull together a huge amount of knowledge, you're going to do that by combining past, present, future lives together, and networking is what most magical practitioners, certainly from a certain standard and above, tend to do. They pull on knowledge so that they look up a book like this and they think, I don't really remember it like that. What they don't do is they don't look at something like, let's give an example of this. Oh, this is a really good one. The god Emertep. Emertep is one of only a handful of Egyptian gods who began life as a mortal and a historic figure. The Greeks associated him with their own god, Asclepius. Now, what they don't do, and this is very important, is they don't do this, as you can probably see here, do-it-yourself Egyptian magic. What they don't do is they don't take an old magical papyrus, translate it into English, and then do the spell that it tells them to do. Because in here it actually says, do it yourself Egyptian magic, summon Emertep. If you feel the need to summon Emertep in a dream, which is very interesting because you don't normally get step-by-step instructions in a book of mythology. Most mythology books are written by academics who don't really believe in magic. So the very fact that they put an actual ritual in here that is a cobbled together translation from a 3rd century Greek magical papyrus that's now in the British Museum is quite interesting, and I do like that. But the perspective of the beginner that thinks, I want to delve into magic, this Emertep, Asclepius person, to do with like ancient times healing and stuff, I know I'm going to conjure him up, and I'm going to do that by copying a translated summoning ritual. Okay, I'll read out the summoning ritual. Okay, find a gecko from the fields. Okay, that just means get a gecko. Gecko is a type of animal. Drown it in a bowl of lily oil. Now, at this point, what I'll get people, and this is people that ask questions a lot of the time, they'll say, Liam, you know a bit about magic, right? I'm a vegetarian and I feel really bad about killing animals, right? And there's this ancient spell from the 3rd century AD, Greek magical papyrus, and I really want to do it, but it involves drowning a gecko and killing it, and that doesn't compute with me. How can I work around that? To which I'm kind of going to say, why are you doing it in the first place? To which they normally say, I'm doing it because surely this magical ritual that's potentially thousands of years old has a certain amount of power and is guaranteed to work. But by saying that, what they're actually saying is, I ain't got a fucking clue about magic. A bunch of ancient people probably knew a lot of magic because ancient times is the golden age of magic. They were all at it, right? So maybe if I recreate a couple of magic rituals, I can get things to work. Copy and paste. Copy and paste now. Imagine this, right? Imagine if, and I'm not saying this is going to work because it probably won't. Imagine you did this ritual and the thing happened, right? That's supposed to happen, which summoning Emertep into a dream. Okay, imagine you summoned Emertep or Asclepius or whatever it is into a dream. It worked. You did the magical ritual to the letter and it worked. Why did that magical ritual work? How did it work? Do you know? If you were to go and do it again, is it going to happen again? Is it a one-time thing? If I don't want to summon Emertep, can I go and drown that gecko in a bowl of lily oil? If I want to summon Aphrodite, for example, is it going to work then? You know? There is no explanation as to how the magic works and why. And the flawed perspective of many beginners is that I take a bunch of rituals from the ancient past or from mythology and stuff, and I spend years and years and years researching and stuff like that, and then I try and copy them. And actually they're being misdirected there, because what you're doing is you're copying, cobbling together a load of things to try and make the magic happen for once, when actually there's a certain YouTube channel called Thoth TV, which you could go on, and there's a little spellcasting course that teaches you how the actual principles of magic work. And you can go ahead and do that instead of spending years and lots of money buying books like this and trying to copy ancient magical Greek papyri. Now, find a gecko from the field, drain it in a bowl of lily oil, engrave the words Asclepius of Memphis, i.e. Emertep, in Greek onto an iron ring that was once a shackle. All of a sudden, we've got a list of ingredients that might be quite difficult to get hold of. You need to get a gecko, presumably from a field. You need to get a bowl of lily oil, which you could probably make yourself or buy from, I don't know, Thoth Witchcraft Shop or Star Child or something like that. Then what you need to do is get an iron ring that used to be a shackle, okay, which you could probably buy on eBay or Amazon or something like that. Then you need to dunk the ring in your expired gecko lily oil, so that gloopy oil that's got a dead gecko in it. Put the ring in it. Hold the ring up to the pole star. Some people might have to Google what the pole star is. Say 7 times. Why did they say 7 times? They don't say that, do they? Menethre, sitting on the cherubim, send me the real Asclepius, not a deceitful demon instead of the god. You'll find there's a lot in ancient grimoires, in 16th, 17th century grimoires, which is, I know if I'm kind of putting the word out there for someone to come along and help me, or summon something, I know that potentially there are scumbags out there that might hear that call and come in and pretend to be that thing. Much like I might shout out of the window for a removal man to come and help me move some furniture and say, you there outside, removal man, where are you? And some nutter might be walking along the road and think, if I pretend to be a removal man, that person's going to invite me in and then I can go and steal the family jewels, like, right? Really bad example, but this is a live feed, so, you know, give me some leeway. But that is a big thing about no calibration. If I call Asclepius up and something shows up saying that it's Asclepius, how the hell do I know whether it is Asclepius or not? Big fear for a lot of beginners. Anyway, continuing on. In the room where you sleep, burn 3 grains of frankincense resin, in a bowl and pass the ring through the smoke. Why? It doesn't say that. Why do you do that? Say, Lord Asclepius, appear 7 times. You've got to say it 7 times, mind. 7's a thing in this spell. 7 planetary mysteries. 7. Wear the ring on the index finger of your right hand while you sleep. Do I wear it on my right hand because I'm right-handed? And if I'm left-handed, should I then wear it on my left hand? I don't know. And I can't think for myself to experiment or even understand why they're doing that. Therefore, I know what I'll do. I'll go on a witchy forum, or I'll phone up Liam, or go in the Witchcraft Live Facebook group and ask, I'm left-handed. Does this apply for me? There's so much of that. There's so much lack of experimentation, I do find. And then all you do is you just wait for Emertep to appear in your dream. Now, that requires quite a lot of ingredients and a big rigmarole. And the armchair magicians that like to sit and collect things like that, and some of them do them, most of the time they never even do them, like to cross-reference things and things like, oh, okay, that one's using a bit of frankincense, that one's using a ring, that one's using that. I like to hypothesize about why are they doing that, why are they using that, without really ever going into the experimental stage. Now, there are some people that would take that ritual and they might try to work with it. They might try to say, okay, let's assume I don't know if magic exists. Here's an ancient ritual. I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to see what happens. And then it might work or it might not work. And if it doesn't work, they haven't got a hope in hell of trying to make it work because they don't know where to go from that. And if it does work, they don't think to themselves, how does it work? Now, imagine it didn't work, okay? If it didn't work, why didn't it work? maybe this is actually bullshit. Maybe the translation isn't right. Maybe you're not supposed to use an iron ring, you're supposed to use a gold ring or something like that. Maybe you're supposed to say it 9 times instead of 7 times. Who the hell knows? But very often the copy and paste perspective is I'm going to do this because someone else knows better than I know. Very bad. Don't like to see that. I've discussed how spells work and things like that many, many times before. And you can look at our back catalogue at the Thoth Witchcraft shop as to why things like that don't work and how you can learn yourself and create magical systems yourself and understand how they work. Oh gosh, I've opened a page and it's got Sekhmet on it. This is really interesting. Right, so we talk again about, I'm picking up the Egyptian one more than the Norse one because I haven't read that one fully yet, and this one's got a couple of things I've bookmarked in it which are quite interesting, which I might talk a little bit about. So again, why do I like books like this and read things like this? Because we've got things like this in here about myths and stories of gods, goddesses, energies, that kind of thing. And someone might open up a page and they might see a picture of a goddess. This one happens to be a lioness-headed goddess, Sekhmet. And they might think the goddess Sekhmet, meaning powerful, was depicted as a lion-headed woman, blah, 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 blah. And they might think, I've got a bit of a soft spot for this one. This is like Tinder. I've swiped a lot of, I'm pretty sure it's left. Is it left if you don't like people? I think it's left if you don't like people. Either way, I'm swiping to say I don't like that god, don't like that goddess, don't like that one. And all of a sudden I see this nice lion-headed one. And I think, gonna swipe right or gonna swipe up or down or whatever the fuck it is for that one because I like it. Kind of gets me going. And I'm thinking what I'm going to do now is I feel called. I feel called to work with this goddess because I saw a picture of it and I kind of liked it. And then what I'll do is I'll do what all the neo-pagans do, which is I'll make an altar, which as we know, an altar is basically a charged doorway, a set place. Most of the neo-pagans don't really use it as that. They just use it as a place to beg, essentially. I'll make an altar to this goddess, I'll put offerings there, and I'll beg for it to do shit for me. Again, not really the magical practitioner's approach. Most magical practitioners, if they use a shrine or altar or something like that, is literally like a porthole or portal for that energy to be concentrated and go through, flow through. It's like a door. Imagine if you cut a doorway, trans-dimensional doorway, into the side of your house, and where it opened up was your best friend's living room, and you're like, my best friend, I like speaking to my best friend, I know what we could really do. I know my best friend lives in Australia, but what would be really nice if I just had a door which I just cut into the side of my living room or in the hallway or something like that, an old cupboard or something, and it just linked to that person. I could pop in, you know, like those hotel rooms where you've got a room there and a room there and they've got a door in the middle. Maybe something like that. It's a lot like how a lot of people will use shrines and altars and stuff like that. Anyway, where am I going with this? Oh yeah, just picking like a Tinder who you want to talk to, gods and goddesses out of a book. Now, the amount of people that I've had come to me that have said, I feel so called to work with this god or this goddess or this and that and the other. And my first immediate reaction is to say, so how have you been doing that? And the first thing they do is normally there'll be one of two people. They'll either say, well, I don't know how to do it. I just feel drawn, i.e. which basically means I've never fucking bothered to do it before. I haven't got a clue what I'm doing. So I've just shelved it for future. Or they say, I'm going to leave offerings to it because everyone likes gifts. And if I give it a gift, that kind of means working with it because that's what I see on the Facebook and the Instagram and all the pretty pictures of people leaving offerings and stuff. And that's what a lot of religions taught me, you know, be a servant, all that sort of thing. High priest, high priestess. Surely that just means that you're the favorite of the god or goddess because you leave the most delicious treats on the altar. No, it doesn't mean that at all. But anyway, things like this, they'll think of that particular, we'll just say goddess, the they'll think of I can't believe it actually says that. If a person became sick, he would summon priests of Sekhmet, and ask them to use their knowledge of magic to cure his illness. Sekhmet also served as a protector king, breathing fire at his enemies and accompanying him during warfare. In her manifestation as the bloodthirsty Aethra, Sekhmet attempted to destroy mankind. It's alright, she was having an off day. People will take, and I know this for a fact because I've seen so many cases which just scares the shit out of me, I like this goddess, lions are cool, and it says the priest possesses knowledge of magic to cure illness. I've got an illness, and so does my friend. I know, let's do a Sekhmet healing ritual. What could possibly fucking go wrong? And, well, either they're lucky enough not to get that energy's attention, or they're unlucky to get that energy's attention, and they misunderstand the nature of that god or goddess. Now, before, when talking about healing gods and goddesses and energies of healing, before people work with ones that they're not familiar with, and I normally do this with the armchair magicians because it normally illustrates the point to the armchair magicians very quickly, the dangers that they are about to, dangerous journey they're about to embark on. What I often will say is I'll say, you want to use this god, goddess, whatever, for some sort of healing thing. Get a list of these various god, goddesses that you claim to work with or that you're interested in, and assign them a drug. And I don't mean a drug as in magic mushrooms or something like that. I mean a prescription pharmaceutical drug. Think about the god, goddess energy. Think about the drug. How does the god, goddess work? Now, if we took something like this one, what would it be? Would it be something like an antibiotic that kills? Would it be something like an antiviral, which potentially helps almost to defend? Because you have more bodyguard type medications, and you have more, let's just destroy everything type aggressive medications. And what you need to think about is, much like a doctor prescribes certain medications for certain conditions, what you don't do is you don't just prescribe some random pill for absolutely everything. Much like when trying to understand how an energy, god, goddess, spirit, whatever works, you need to understand the energy itself and what it does and how it interacts before you start fucking going and prescribing and petitioning and summoning shit like that up, because it could potentially be very, very dangerous, can exacerbate the situation and all of that sort of thing. I'm just going to leave that there because otherwise I'll go and start talking about healing magic, but hopefully some people will get that, others might not. Now, I've opened it up on another page and it's all about Eye of Horus, and I really literally only put that on because we have Horus here and it says, which Horus? There is a confusing array of Horus figures in Egyptian mythology, and though often treated as separate gods with different parents, how does that work? It's either a god of this or a god of that. I don't understand, because I come from the Western tradition where there can only be one story, and it's one story that is right and everything else is wrong. So which is the right story? Tell me, Liam, which is the most accurate translation? As opposed to thinking about, actually, we're trying to condense something extremely complicated, and the only way to do this is to separate it out. People that are familiar with theoretical physics will be good with this, with models. Atomic structure. Sometimes they think of atoms in one way and describe them as one way and draw them in one way. Other times they draw them in another way. This one, literally, the only thing that caught my eye is that Lady Poison has one of these. Horus stone. Absolutely gorgeous it is. I was so jealous when I went round her house and she pulled it out. It's hefty. And the only thing that I wanted to say is remind me next time she's on to ask her a little bit about her smuggling that out from Egypt when she went on holiday and smuggling it through customs. Because that's a good story. Oh, here's a good one, right? The gods' responsibilities and limitations. Now, from the perspective of a lot of the kind of Judeo-Christian, particularly the Christian perspective, it's there is one God, the Almighty, the All-Powerful, Omnipotent. When we look at a lot of pagan kind of ideas, and we look at science, and we look at the periodic table and such, just like people, the gods had their roles and responsibilities, jobs in the cosmos that only they could perform, as well as limitations. When we look at pantheons of spirits, very often we might notice that they're all the god of something. They're almost like personifications of mechanisms that exist in creation. I'm just going to leave that there, and I'm not going to elaborate on that. So as you can see, when I go around looking for a mythology book like this, I'm less interested in what it's saying. I'm more interested in the spark of creativity that ignites within me to go further research or experiment. Most of the time with me, it comes with experimenting. Now, it does also bring back memories, which takes us nicely to this page. Sobek, Egyptian god with the crocodile head. I'm going to put the book down. Sobek happens to be a favourite of mine. Now, there's lots of YouTube videos and mythology stories and stuff like that that you can go away and research Sobek and stuff like that. But putting it simply, there's this place called Crocodiles, is what the Greeks called it. Crocodiles, I know, sounds made up, it's actually a thing. It's the Greek word for the cult of the crocodiles, so the cult of Sobek. Now think about this. You have a bunch of Egyptians in a certain region being terrorized by massively giant crocodiles that are trying to eat them. And you have a bunch of priests that come along and think, we need to do something about this. Do they, A, use this magical practices and such like to reach out to the connected mind, that energy of crocodiles, and, you know, find something there? Or do they, B, think, well, actually, if we overfeed these crocodiles, they'll leave us alone? Is it the kind of reductionist perspective of it's all just a scam? Egyptian Temple of Sobek's just a scam. We got a crocodile infestation. Let's get all of the crocodiles overfed and pissed up on wine, and they'll be fine. And that way, we need to tell everyone they need to constantly give us offerings, us priests, constantly give us offerings so that we can appease the crocodile gods, or crocodile god, or giant crocodile. And that way they won't get attacked. And you could think about things like, well, is this Sobek even a god? Or is it just egregore or tulpa? Or is it literally a bunch of upstarts thinking there's a crocodile infestation? Oh, we've kind of fixed the infestation, but what can we do out of this? Is this early capitalism? Is this a bunch of people thinking, well, now we're onto a good thing here. We've got people giving us all of these offerings that we're giving to Sobek. We'll just call him Sobek because he's the biggest crocodile. And, well, Sobek's not going to eat all of them. The crocodiles aren't going to eat all of them. Let's establish a little cult complex. Let's just live off of the fat of the offerings. Priest class. Bad priest class. I'm going to leave that with you. You could research Sobek and you can think about the occult of Sobek, and you can even try summoning Sobek potentially. I wonder how many of these god goddesses and such from mythology are actually energies, because it's normally very apparent which ones are actual energies that have existed since the dawn of time, which ones are tulpas, which ones are egregores, and which ones are just people making crap up because they benefit from it. I'm not going to say which ones are which, but it does beg the question. That's the sort of thing that I contemplate when I look at things like that. Partly because I know a little bit too much about the Cult of Sobek, given that I was there at the time. But I'm not going to reveal that sort of information. Oh, here we go. This is another good one. I'll probably make this the last one that I talk about because it's on the same lines as that. And you'll notice that this isn't a book review. Remember, this is not a book review series. So when I talk about this book, I'm in no way, shape or form endorsing it. Now, I quite liked this. I got a lot from it. None of the stuff I got from it was memorizing facts and interesting things. I just like to flick through, look at the pictures, and it reminds me of things and inspires me. And gives me ideal things to kind of go away and think about. Those people that think, Liam, I don't know what to do. I've done the homework you set me, I've done this, I've done that. I think maybe some of those people need to either go and watch some Disney films, or they need to go ahead and read some mythology, because it's inspiration. Okay. Oh, I didn't know what to do, but then I watched this thing on Disney. It was some film or something, and there was some old lady that made a poison apple. And I'm thinking, I'm going to make a poison apple curse. Or there was this thing I saw in mythology, right? I was reading about it. And it's a magical artifact. I think I might go away and create my own. Inspiration, you see. That's what I love about mythology. Is it's very rich for inspiration. Now this is Bess. Say hello, Bess. Hello, Bess. It says in here, Bess is a popular household god. Bess, the god Bess, is unusual in Egyptian art because artists painted him face on, looking at the viewer. He displays blah, 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 right? You can go and look at pictures of Bess. Now, me and Chris have hinted before about when you read a book of mythology and you look at pantheons and stuff and it says gods and goddesses, not all of these things are what would be described as gods and goddesses. Gods and goddesses, whether it's lower goddesses or higher goddesses or lower gods and higher gods, are essentially, when you're talking about a higher god, you're talking about almost like a house of cards, this universe being a house of cards, and that energy thing needing to exist in order for this whole structure, this whole cosmos universe to exist. And then you've got lesser gods, which is the idea of, well, these are things that just kind of evolved. Okay, you could remove them from existence and kill them off and stuff, but they'll cause a big ripple effect. But the whole house of cards, the universe isn't going to end, right? With regards to looking into pantheons, archaeologists and that, unfortunately, we're getting better at it. People that discuss these topics, and archaeologists, I believe, are getting better at looking at actually the culture itself, as opposed to making assumptions based on the culture that you're from. A lot of people will come from the Abrahamic perspective. The Victorians are terrible for this, with all the archaeological stuff that they, research and digs and books and stuff that they'd write about. It's thinking, I come from the perspective that there is one God, and it is almighty and omnipotent. And I'm seeing this other culture over here, and they've got multiple gods. But there's a daddy god and a mummy god and a bunch of children gods, and I suppose it's kind of like Jesus with all the angels, isn't it? Yeah, it's like God, that's the important one, that's the one that's important, and then we've got all of these like other things that are responsible for doing specifics, that kind of approach. What we need to think about is that most archaeologists and people that write mythology books are not magical practitioners. They do not really fully understand the types of occult words and such that we do. They don't have a palette at all, really, from a psychic perspective. They certainly don't have one developed enough to distinguish between energies and distinguish between classifications. So what you tend to get is things like Beth's being described as a god. Is Beth a god, or is Beth something else? Okay, we've talked a bit about egregores and tulpas and stuff like that. Is it God? Some would say it's not a god because it was created by people and it's just kind of evolved. Maybe something's evolved to become a god or god level power, that sort of thing. Now, what if, I'm not saying that this is the case, I'm just trying to make people think, what if Beth is being described as a god, but it's not? What would that make it? Is it a ghost or something? Is it I don't know, what is it? Maybe what if maybe Beth is actually a technology? Beth is a charm in itself. What if we took something like the abracadabra spell, or we took something like these protective amulets or something like that, and they took off so much that all of the energy that's being pumped and the copy and pasted, all of these people that are overdoing it over and over again, what if this energy becomes a thing? Okay, much like a tulpa. But then what if it doesn't necessarily evolve a consciousness? So maybe something like Beth, who Beth is often referred to as a protection of the home. What if the original Beth wasn't so much a god that come around saying, I've noticed you've got several home invasions, right? I've noticed that there's a lot of nasty people, you live in a bad neighborhood, right? Maybe you should put an altar in the corner and maybe I'll protect your home or something like that. Maybe Beth didn't come about and appear before a bunch of Egyptians and say, look, I'm God, worship me and I'll protect you, right? We'll sort this out. Maybe Beth evolved as what was originally a form of magical protection for the house. A lot like some of these traditional witches bury puppets in the fireplace and in the garden and stuff like that as protective measures from the house. What if that protective traditional witches puppet, some like the mandrakes, mannequins and stuff like that, what if that thing just started being called a Beth? Okay, protective puppet, mandrake, mannequin, that practice of creating that thing that everyone does maybe in a slightly different way, but the general idea was, oh, you need to create a Beth. And then over time, it wasn't so much a case of you need to create a Beth, you need Beth in your house. All of these things, as they kind of escalate and go on and move through time, because you are talking about things that go over several thousand years. What if it evolved from being a simple charm to being more personified, to the point where maybe there was this kind of linking of an energy form that would be protective of the house? Now, how would you go about finding that? Well, you won't find that sort of thing in a book of mythology. And if you're the sort of person that thinks, I'm just going to follow a bunch of occult content, such as Liam and Chris, and hopefully the more people that spiel all of this stuff, that give me the secrets and that sort of thing, maybe I'll learn by listening to others talk and filing it away so I'm more knowledgeable. That's not the way we teach our people. What we teach is we teach based on experimentation. I would hate it when people just kind of listen to you just so that they can take the things that you say, file them away, and then repeat them thinking they somehow know. Because there'll be people coming and saying, did you know Beth is actually evolved from an old charm? Which I didn't necessarily say that, although I did. I don't necessarily agree with that, although maybe I do. But there'll be people that have taken what I've said, they won't have heard it anywhere else before, and they'll repeat it thinking I've gleaned some kind of magical practice from that, right? What I prefer, okay, is what we'd get our patrons to do, which would be to take a Beth, There he is, bless him. His little Willy. And experiment with it. You could try making your own, but more than likely get a picture of Best. And like we got these people to open up the Nazar and try and work out what the Nazar is. Experiment with it. See if you can find out if there is a consciousness behind this. Okay. And if it has got a consciousness, what its side of the story is. And if it doesn't have a consciousness, what's it made out of? You know, where is the energy there? You know? Interesting piece of homework. It doesn't look like we've got any questions, even though this is a live stream. We have got a couple of comments and stuff. I haven't really read the Norse one. Yeah, that tracks. And what else have we got? Yes, it's left if you don't like them. That'll be for the Tinder thing. So swipe left. That's my left. Swipe left if you don't like them. So that was going on to the god and goddesses and reading the books of mythology and going, swipe left, swipe left. Ooh, I like the guns on that. Swipe right. And then I suppose if the goddesses swipes right with you, then you start a working relationship. Maybe it starts listening and taking your little offerings, and when you say, please give me some money, great god and goddess, I've left you some chocolates. Maybe if you get your prayers answered, because that's really what it is, prayers are equal to begging in my opinion, they is literally like, well, you swiped right and maybe the god or goddess swiped right as well, so it's doing something for you. And that isn't really my approach to magical practice. I, as you all know, prefer to try my best to forge stronger relationships than that, or do the stuff myself. But there we go. Hopefully, when talking about the little mythology books and stuff, you know, I've at least entertained you a little bit. So there we go. That's it for this episode of the series, which was episode 2. Bye.